This three-step framework completely changed my career. Let me take it back a little bit. A few years ago, I felt like I was falling behind. All of my peers were out getting jobs, making money and buying houses, while I was sitting on 300 hobbies and a career that I wasn't really sure about. I felt pressure to get my life right on the first try, but it was like I'd already missed my chance. Like, it was already too late for me. I wasn't happy with where I was at, but I was afraid of making the wrong decision. So I stayed, paralyzed, unable to make a choice, just watching the weeks and months go by. But what if it's not too late? What if there's a way for us to get moving again? The answer came from a pretty unexpected place, but completely transformed my thinking, and not in the way that you might expect. In the game League of Legends, when there's a meta shift or there's a new champion or item that's released, we take what we know about the game and try to figure out what the best playstyle, role, or strategy would be. You already know this to be called theory crafting, but then, critically, we take our ideas and we put them to the test, bringing them into game, experimenting, iterating, improving on it until it's worthy of being featured in a Korean solo queue sleeper builds kind of video. The problem is that I was trying to theory craft my life, trying to figure out what I liked and what the perfect career would be for me, without ever putting anything to the test. I was too afraid of wasting time or of failing to experiment. I was taking a theory craft into the biggest game of all, my life, and not surprisingly, I was losing. So I changed tact. I needed to stop trying to figure things out in my head and try things out in the real world. Except I was too risk averse to full on quit my job and go balls deep into some sort of career experiment I wasn't even sure would work. Maybe you're scared too. So here's what we're gonna do. Let me explain, and then we'll talk about an actionable solution to get unstuck and how to figure out what we actually like and want to do with our lives. I was on track to be a doctor, but I wasn't even sure if that's what I wanted to do anymore. Except I was in too deep now. If I changed direction now, all of the hours that I spent studying, the sleepless nights and nervous breakdowns that had brought me to this point would have been for nothing. So I might as well stay, I figured, and spend the rest of my life hoping that things would get better, right? I realized that the longer I stayed on this path, the harder it would be to change. The 3 or 4 years I'd spent in university felt like an eternity and a huge investment to my 22-year-old self. But in the grand scheme of things, the few years that I had allegedly wasted would mean less and less the older that I got. And if it meant having a shot at finding something that I actually loved, it would be well worth the sacrifice. So I reset and pretended that I was at year 0. Free to start experimenting. But then we run into our next problem. Where the F do we start? To do this, let's take a trip down memory lane. Growing up, we used to do things for no other reason than because they were fun. But now, everything that we do is in service of our career, and we feel uneasy about doing things that won't look good on our CV. I didn't even know what I liked doing anymore. So I thought I could learn a couple of things from my 10-year-old self. To do this, I applied the 5 whys exercise to my childhood. Let me explain. I took some of the things that I loved doing as a kid, and I asked myself why it was that I loved doing them. I then asked why to the answer to that question, and continued until I had arrived at a fundamental thing that I enjoyed. For example, as a kid, I loved to take things apart and put them back together. After a couple of whys, this boils down to because I like working with my hands and figuring out how things work. I repeated this process a couple of times until I had a general list of things that I fundamentally enjoyed and thought I might want in a career. Except I wasn't about to go all willy-nilly from here, drop out of college and apply for a job as a Lego master because I liked playing with Bionicles growing up. Instead, I started some small experiments. I learned that I liked teaching. We were in the middle of lockdown at the time, so I started making some small videos teaching people how to longboard dance. The following summer, I felt a lot of pressure to work in a clinic because that's what all of my peers were doing. I was afraid of falling behind, but I reasoned that it was more important that I spend the time trying to figure out what it was that I liked, rather than trying to get a head start at a career that I wasn't sure about. So I worked at a startup that summer, and a research lab the next. The point wasn't to find the exact career that I would love. Rather, it was to collect data points about things that I found engaging and fulfilling. And it was then that I learned the most important lesson of all. When I was accepted to professional school, I was thrilled, really excited to be learning about the intricacies of how the body worked. It was a disappointment then when I learned that people were more concerned about the what than the why. They cared more about memorizing than understanding. And so I realized the job, any job, is important, but it's less important than the types of people it attracts and how much I have in common with those people. They say that you can't be what you can't see. I learned that we need mentors and peers that we can look up to, and this became one of the most important factors when I was evaluating my career experiments. Sometimes I still find myself comparing my career to that of my more successful peers. But more importantly, and to all of you who are feeling lost, the most important thing is that we're learning as we go, and trying to figure things out along the way isn't such a bad thing after all. Thanks for watching.